Hello and welcome to Glenfast Games. This is the first narrated video I've done on this channel because one of my friends asked me to do this, especially on this Might and Magic game, because, well, let's be honest here, it's not very easily accessible, not even when you're playing it, but especially from the just watching the gameplay video. This is not a scripted narration, nor has it been done while I was playing the actual game. This is a voiceover done afterwards. And yeah, I can kinda understand why not many people nowadays would not pick up this game or start to play it from start to finish, even from the start. When I started it a couple of days ago, I did struggle quite a bit to get even from level 1 onwards. It got easier, as you will see probably on this video, if I remember correctly. But it's a game where, let's say, it was made in 1986 or released in 1986. It was made on the previous 3 years or something, because it was made mostly by a singular person, and it took him a lot of time to write a game of this scope at that age, because the world is actually, as I'm told, it is actually quite huge. I don't know much of it yet. In fact, I know very little of it because I didn't really read any guides or any special, maybe some tips and tricks on how to survive in the beginning of the game, which can be almost seen on the previous video. But the game itself, apart from what you can read from the back cover of the box and a couple of lines from the manual and the map that comes with it of the world of Varn, V-A-R-N, it's not a It's a quite opaque game in the style of games of this era. Quite a lot of the games, especially role-playing games which were released around this time, or in the years let's say from the start of the 80s towards maybe exactly 86 or 87, they tended to be kind of, you have to find your own way. In Might and Magic Book 1, the back cover of the box says you need to find the secrets of the Inner Sanctum, which is the name of the game as well, the secrets of the Inner Sanctum. But apart from that, it tells you that you're in the land of Varn, and there's gonna be towns and castles and kings and whatnot, your generic fantasy world fare, monsters, wizards, spells, treasure. But then that's it, that's all you get. You start your game from the town of Sorpigal. I'm now, as you're watching the video, I'm now in the dungeons underneath Sorpigal. I'm led to understand that at least most of the cities, there's I think 6 in the game, contain or have some sort of a dungeon attached to the city, under the city, for various reasons, probably quests. I even did get my first quest. Sadly, it's not shown in the video because my recording was busted at the time. I didn't notice it, and I didn't want to play it again because it's such a tedious game to play. But I did get my very first quest after I did get my whole party to the 2nd level after the previous video, where I was still on the 1st level for the whole duration of that video. And after I did manage to kill off more than half a dozen characters on the first video, on the 1st level, before I actually realized that you could kind of save your game by going to the inn. And when you go to the inn, and ask to be checked in the inn in any of these cities, as you will see at the end of the video if you can last that long. Then it doesn't say anything, but it says in the manual that now your characters are saved. And what that means is actually, if you die, if those characters die, or if you get a game over, if not those characters die, but if you quit the game or you get a game over in combat or from traps, which are so ubiquitous in this game that it's ridiculous. But anyway, if you get a game over, then all of your characters that were saved you can pick up again from the moment that they were saved with that like those experience points, those equipment, gold, food, gems, all that. So it is very advisable to go to save as often as you can. Obviously, I think I don't have the experience yet or the knowledge of the world yet to be quite certain of this, but I do think, knowing the age of this game, that those inns are only going to be found in those cities, those 5 or 6 cities. And obviously that makes it more dangerous to go to explore some dungeons outside of those cities, which might have multiple levels, maybe, I don't know, they might have one. The manual quite helpfully actually says that each dungeon or city or each map tile, let's say, is comprised of a grid of 16 by 16 squares. So kind of apart from the outworld, which is also, well, yeah, it's made up of those tiles as well, actually. So you'll always know excuse me, you'll always know the limits or constraints of the actual map that you are exploring, so you'll know that, because you need to map your progress in this game. I've been doing that, drawing the map on a graph paper. The manual very explicitly tells you that you are not going to succeed in this game if you do not do that. And there's even some spells to help you with that, but I haven't used them. I haven't. Maybe if there's like maze traps or something like that, you might need to use them more, but thus far I have had no point in the game that I should have had to use them. I've been able to find my way completely by just mapping. And yeah, I've been trying to, the kind of beginner's hints that I got, or the biggest one, was that do not exit the first map, the town of Sorpigal, before you are at least 2nd level for your whole party. So I did just that, and after I got the 2nd level by trials and tribulations, then I ventured out into the dungeons beneath Sorpigal, where you can see me fighting some dino lizards right now and going about trying to find something. The combat is really tedious. As you could imagine, most of the game is comprised of combat. Well, the first town gave some kind of tantalizing hints on that there might be some deeper lore somewhere in the game, and the guides also told you that if you want to get further in the game, you need to write down every single kind of hint that you get. So, for example, in the first video, there were, in the city or the town, there were all these kinds of statues here and there, actually quite all over the place, which had some quite lengthy inscriptions attached to them. And I did write all of those down in case that they're going to be needed later. But be as it may, I'm inclined to think that it's still going to be mostly combat for the duration of the game, which the manual quite, let's say, discouragingly in the year 2026 tells me that there's going to be hundreds of hours of adventure. And if you're looking at this combat, for example, hundreds of hours of this is going to be a stretch to get from start to finish. I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. Let's say there's still the elements of CRPGs which make the genre still enjoyable to me. I do like grinding to a certain point, or then, depending on the game, if there's some achievements that I find enjoyable to grind, then I might do that. And of course, if finishing a game can be considered an achievement for this type of really old game, then I don't necessarily mind the grind, but I do have to say that I'm already beginning to think that it won't get much more exciting than this. The monsters, they do have different attacks, and well, at this point of the game, obviously they don't have many spells or special attacks or anything. They just hit you physically, or some have had like breath weapon attacks or something like that, or ranged attacks in general. But it's just like monster this and that hits you for X points of damage. This combat, for example, I could imagine from D&D and such that those hags could be a problem. They probably would have some special effects or spells, I don't know, but I managed to cut them down before they managed to do pretty much anything to me. The only enemy thus far, which was actually, I got a warning for that before I started playing the game, was the sprite. And I think there's one combat in this video against the sprites which I managed to win. Every single other one of them which I didn't retreat from or managed to retreat from, I have lost. At this point of the game, the sprites are quite impossible to hit. They have a very, very high armor class for this level, like the second or third level. They can be hit by magic attacks, but then again, those don't always do anything either. And there's not too many of them at this point either as well. I can't remember if my guys at this point are on the second or the third level. The spellcasters get new spells every second level, so there's spells from, I think, from level 1 through level 7 or 8, either one of those. And every level has like around 8 spells, different spells. Around half of them are completely useless, it seems, as is par for the course for these games. It's the same in Ultima, it's the same in almost every single CRPG of this era, and even later, even way through the 90s, that there can be a lot of spells, and it seems like there's a huge choice for options for spellcasters, but you're going to be using the same spells over and over again, because most of them don't do anything in combat, and even if they tell that they do something, spells, for example, like blind or sleep, I've been trying to use them from time to time, they never do anything, and I've kind of just gathered that why wouldn't I just use my regular attack spells which do hit point damage, and why bother trying to use those special spells, because they don't seem to really affect anything. And that is also very common in these types of games, also in JRPGs. Actually, it's quite common in JRPGs even now. They might have spells like sleep or silence or whatnot, and they're probably usually usable or useful in maybe like 2 or 3 fights in the entire game, which can last for tens or sometimes hundreds of hours. But anyway, the usable spells are used in every single combat. My sorcerer, character number 5, Illuron maybe, I don't know how that should be pronounced. He or she is the sorcerer, I can't remember if it's he or she. I think they might all be male, I don't know, might be. That was another tip actually. This game lets you choose both character alignment and the character gender, and the hints at the beginning of the game, or which I read before starting the game, said that it's advisable to create your whole party to be the same alignment and or the same gender. It doesn't really matter much, probably, or they said that it doesn't matter with the finishing of the game or anything like that, but there might be some optional quests or something which check your either gender or alignment, or maybe some items, I don't know. Remains to be seen. I'm not probably really planning on doing many optional quests if I manage to get this game to a point that I'm going to be thinking that I'm going to be playing this through. Let's see. Search nothing. It's one of the things about, again, this era of these games. I'm gonna be saying this a lot, probably during this narration, but there is a search command in the game. It seems it's only used for, basically, you have to search for treasure after you defeat enemies in combat. And it's a separate command for some reason for that, otherwise you won't get the treasure. There's not treasure always, I mean, they don't drop something every time. But if you forget the search then, and you move away from the square, then the treasure is lost anyway. I think that there's gonna be points in the game in some later dungeons or something, or puzzles, where you probably use that for something else as well. At least the manual hints to that, but that remains to be seen. Not in the first couple of towns or dungeon levels, it seems. Well, then I've missed something. Here you can see the status screen with the stats, kind of D&D stats with different names: HP, SP, armor class, inventory, experience, age, which is supposedly, according to the manual, very important. Your characters will start randomly dying of age at age 80 or something, but I have a distinct feeling that that's not gonna come into play that much. Unless there's some monsters or spells which play with that mechanic, but I don't know. The spells themselves, the status screen doesn't show any spells because you get them all on the first level. You know all of the spells of your class, sorcerer or cleric. On the 3rd level you get the 2nd level, all of the 2nd level spells. On the 5th level the 3rd level spells, and so on and so forth. And then, as there's 6 classes, the Knight, the Paladin, the Archer, the Robber, the Sorcerer, and the Cleric. Some of them, the Paladin and the Archer, get some spells later on, so I'm told in the manual, but I don't know which level and which spells, or do they get all of them, or something else. Here I actually forgot to use Lorien's Turn Undead spell. I got to use it a couple of times before, and it seemed to be really powerful, but I forget about it half the time. Because the weird thing is, on the 1st level, the combats were really deadly. Every single combat, you start out with basically no equipment. Every single hero has only a club and no armor, no nothing. And unless your endurance, which determines your hit points like Constitution in D&D, unless that's quite high, then you're gonna be in a world of trouble with all of those monsters. And like I said, I managed to get quite a lot of people killed before I realized how to deal with that. You can resurrect them in the temple, but that costs quite a lot of money. I think it was 200 gold at this point. And I've maybe once had that kind of money. Quite a lot of money goes to just training the characters and then, of course, buying new equipment. I haven't used the services of the temple one single time, and I'm guessing that with at least at this point of the game, with how much money you get from the fights, might be like 5 gold, 10 gold, maybe. In the dungeons it's been a bit better. It's been maybe like 30 gold or something every now and then. But training takes, I think it's 25 gold per level, and that might even depend on class. I can't remember completely how that went, but it was 25 gold per level or more, and it's incremental, so that's the first. If you get 2nd level, it's 25 gold or 50 gold, then 3rd level is 50 or 75 or something like that. I didn't really check out the system, and I'm not really exactly sure about the experience requirements either for the different classes. I always have to run back to the trainer and check them out because can't be bothered. I tried actually looking them up from the internet, but it's such an old game, and it seems that even though the Might and Magic series itself has quite a lot of following, or had quite a lot of following, I don't know about that nowadays. But this being the first game, and maybe even the second game, those old 8-bit games, it's not very easy to find any reliable information on these anymore. Especially with this one, because there used to be a Nintendo Entertainment System version or port of this, which was done much later, I think in 1990 or something. It's got better graphics and better, nicer UI and all that. I think it's mostly the same game, or even completely the same game. But there's more information about that, but as I'm not sure if it's the same, I just decided to, I'll just find my way through somehow. These gremlins are so annoying. They come in huge groups and they hit you like 2 times every single one. And the combat is really weird as well. You can see the pluses next to, like on the upper left corner, that's my guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then next to them on the right is the enemies. And the ones who have plus next to them are on melee range. And it seems quite random. I haven't found out how does that actually work in terms of the combat starts. Well, yeah, unless, yeah, there's ambushes and such where obviously things like this might happen. I didn't check right now if this is an ambush or not. But it seems like your first two guys at the 1 or 2 position are pretty much always in melee. I think they are always in melee unless you're asleep. But then positions from like 3 through 6, I haven't found a method. Usually one of them is in melee range and it's either 3 or 4. Sometimes none of them are. I don't know if it depends on the monsters, if they have some abilities to like swarm you or something. I know that if you try to retreat and do nothing, basically don't hit them or block, there's these messages which say the monster infiltrates your ranks and then you can see they get to a better melee position. But apart from that, I have no clue onto how that is determined. Maybe it's completely random, I don't know. Here you can see the basic room in this game. The 16 by 16 grid dungeon levels, they're not that huge as you could imagine, quite similar to the gold box games, I'd say, off the top of my head. But those might be a bit bigger actually. But most of these levels are completely empty. They have doors which are locked or unlocked, and when you go through them, they might be locked right after them, or trapped. They're almost always trapped, and you have no control, or you can try to unlock them, yeah, but here's the sprite fight, but I think I managed to destroy them all before they got to me too badly. They need to be basically killed with magic attacks at this point of the game. You'll never hit them with normal weapons or ranged weapons. And regarding combat, there's the handicap status right there, which now says party +5. I have no idea what that means. I'm gonna actually look that up in the manual right now. What's that say for the handicap? The handicap prompt indicates whether monsters or party members have been given a speed handicap for the current round of combats. If monsters have been given a handicap, the prompt will show monster plus the number by which all monster speed has been increased. Oh, okay. The speed is quite important, actually. Generally, all the characters and monsters act strictly through their, like in the order of their speed stat, which I did not realize before starting the game and playing a couple of fights, and I was too, well, let's say, too less of a munchkin to roll more characters because they already had a bunch of experience and gold, so I'm gonna go with what I have. I do understand that certain characters could benefit from having less speed or more speed, but I got a bit lucky maybe because my cleric, Lorien number 4, I think he's usually quite late in the round of combat, so he'll have a chance of picking someone up with a healing spell if people are dropping down. I also don't know really how the damage system works in that way, that in combats it seems that characters usually go unconscious when they get to 0 hit points. It might be that they die only after, or a few rounds after or something, because you can always get them back up with a healing spell or actually a healing item as well. You can buy from the shop, which anybody can use. Healing spells can be only used by clerics or higher level paladins, I would suppose. But yeah, if that character goes down, you'll get an asterisk next to his name, and then I've had characters die from traps and from combat, but I didn't actually pay attention on what their condition was, because I didn't actually really know that they're gonna be dead. I just thought that they're gonna be unconscious, because at the start of the game I could always like wake them up again with a healing spell, regardless of what had happened before, so maybe they die after a couple of turns or something. If you know how that works, please do comment on this. I'd be actually glad to know, because that would be useful later on in the game, if I ever get there. But yeah, apart from that, the combat, as you can see, it's very basic. You can fight whoever you want on melee range with melee, you can shoot. Only archers can shoot from melee. If you got a non-archer with a ranged weapon in melee, he or she can't use that ranged weapon. And then you cast spells with your spellcasters, mostly attack and healing spells, like I mentioned before. And then outside of combat, you always rest after combat. If you have food, it's up one food, and then you get all of your hit points and all of your spell points, it seems. Maybe later when you get more of them, I don't know how that works, if you get only a percentage or something. And then you always cast these same spells again. Leather skin for the sorcerer protection spell, and then now that I'm 3rd level with my cleric, I'll cast protection from fire in this dungeon, because I've noticed that there's some fire-breathing ants, fire ants, here and there here. So, and they did quite a lot of damage actually. So, because those spells always fizzle out after you're rested, they only last for that kind of day, then you'll always be casting them again and again and again and again. Every single time after a trap, you rest, cast those spells again. After any combat, rest before you open any sack or chest. Every single leather sack or pouch might contain a death ray, and every single one of your characters is dead. No, not really, they just do damage. There's like lots and lots of traps which with different descriptions. Death rays and razor blades and needles and fireballs and lightning and whatnot, but apart from one, I've always seen them just do hit point damage. There was one which blinded one of my characters a bit later, but I don't know where that came from. Maybe it was the lightning bolt? Could have been. But you'll get the hang of the combat playing very quickly, and it's not very strategic. You'll want to try to target the strongest monsters first. The game quite helpfully says in the manual that when you encounter the monsters, when there's this monster graphic on the screen, on the dungeon screen, the strongest monsters will be represented graphically, so you can usually guess what that is from the graphic if you've played these sorts of games. So I usually target them first, and then go on from there. If you get hit, you heal your characters. If you have spare time, with Lorien always cast Bless. I don't know what it does, but I suppose it helps. It's a combat spell and lasts for only that combat. And then there's some spells on the 3rd level like extra might and extra speed and something like that, but I still haven't. Maybe if there's some bigger monsters to come by. Most of the monsters I've encountered this far have been in swarms basically, or at least like 5 or 6 or 7 of them. Not every single one, but usually it's that kind of a situation. So, except for a fight that'll probably come a bit later with a couple of hippogriffs, which was the most difficult fight at that point of the game. They really hit hard, and I really had to like concentrate all of my damage on one of them at the same time, or one of them at a time. This is the arena. I didn't fight here because I have no idea what would happen, and I wasn't too keen on. I hadn't saved for a while. I might come back to see what it's about, but usually at low levels in these kinds of games, I've noticed that it's not worth it trying. You'll usually just end up getting killed for nothing. And if there's some rewards, they're going to be not that good probably at this point of the game. I would suppose it doesn't also scale. I'm quite sure that there's no such thing in this game as scaling. Apart from that, somewhere, it was either in the manual or somewhere in the official documentation anyway, or some adverts or something, that said that the game is designed in such a way that as you go, the monsters get more difficult, or they try to stay on the same level as your characters. But I'm almost 99.9% sure that there's no like real scaling enemies here. It just relates to your area that you're supposed to be in at that point of the game, and so on and so forth. I would imagine. I might be wrong though, but it's hard for me to imagine proper scaling monster system at this kind of level of technology and level of game development. The inventory system is quite basic. You can carry 6 items and equip 6 items. I haven't had problems with my inventory being full as of yet. I don't have many quest items. I only have that one quest I mentioned before, which is not shown in the video, sadly. There was this, in this dungeon that I'm in right now, I found a wizard, obviously sitting on a desk in a room beyond like a crap load of monsters, and he wanted me to get a scroll to a different wizard in a different town, which is, I suppose, kind of a way to railroad in a way the player to the next supposed objective area. I'd have to say that, well, he wasn't hard to get to, or he wasn't especially hard to find, but if you're that kind of player that isn't inclined to kind of map out all of the levels that you're in, I could see that being a problem. That it's the only quest I've found thus far. I think that I've gone through this whole city or town, at least if I look at my map, unless I've missed some weird secret area. Every single wall might be a gateway to a secret area, or there might be some weird teleporters or something. There was I think it was a teleporter in the dungeon earlier when I went there quite at the start of this video, which I didn't take. I think it's a teleporter, I'm quite sure it is, but I didn't want to take that because, again, this is the kind of a game that, you know, when all of my characters were first level, I was starting to explore this starting town, and I found mostly empty rooms. I tried to search here and there, nothing found, and that was when I read from somewhere or realized that the searching only functions mostly after combat. But anyway, like 90% of the, or 99% of the rooms were empty, apart from the ones that tell you that, hey, here's a temple, or here's a tavern, or here's whatnot, or a pub, which hasn't got me anywhere again. But then one room had a trapdoor which dropped me down to this dungeon. And on the first level with no equipment, with no nothing, and I ran there for a couple of squares, and the first fight completely, they wiped me on the floor, those monsters. And yeah, it's that kind of a game design of the era again, that if you come across a random teleporter and you're not quite sure that your party is overpowered for your level or something, then you do not take those teleporters. You will probably end up somewhere that you'll be gonna end up regretting that taking that teleporter. The game can be generous at times. might have even been the hippogriff fight. I can't remember. Or might have been this one even. I did find a chest which had a very nice bow, a great bow, which or I suppose it's very nice. They don't give you any stats for the equipment, either in the manual or in the game itself, but you can gauge that by their price, probably, basically. And when I got the second town, which you will see a bit later, the blacksmith there sold the great bow for 250 gold, I think, which was more expensive than the crossbow, for example, which was the most expensive bow in the first town. So, and I got a +1 shield at some point as well. So, you never get anything else than money from this sacks, but when you get a chest, I think you'll always get something besides the money. You'll get other gems or then some kind of item or equipment. At least that's been the case every single time thus far. Here I'm just grinding. These were the encounters basically before that wizard. Actually, it's the same corridor. This game has a weird system of fixed encounters that's which actually is part of the grind. Whenever you go save in the inn, the map kind of resets, so that then when you get out of the inn, all the spaces with fixed encounters are again filled with encounters. So the way to actually grind experience in this game, because the random encounters are quite seldomly seen, at least at the start, I've noticed. You go clear out all the fixed encounters that you know of. I've marked them on my map because you'll see that they're fixed, and you can usually guess, like, behind a door or something. And then you clear them out. If you manage to survive, you take your spoils, your loot, then you go to the inn, then you save, then you go back again. You can see that on the first video more, but you can see that on this video as well a bit. Here's the fire ants. Luckily, I do have my protection from fire on, as you can see from that screen. And because the first time I met these guys, I got my ass handed to me, but no, my cleric is 3rd level, so bye-bye, fire ants. I think they might still do a bit of damage, but anyway. But yeah, the grind is basically this very repetitive, like, grinds, I suppose are, but I think this is maybe even more so, at least at this stage of the game, when the locations are very limited, where you can go or where you can survive, basically. But I did notice a nice kind of curve, like experience curve at this point as well, because it felt, even if it was only a couple of hours, it felt it took me forever to get from the first level to the second level, because but after that, like from the second to the third, as we're doing right now, I think most of my guys are on the 3rd level already at this point, but I'm grinding for the last bits of experience for one of them. I can't remember who. But that seemed like a much smoother ride, even if the statistics of those characters don't even rise from levels. I think they do from somewhere else, but not from gaining levels. But hit points and spell points, obviously, they get up. But and on the 3rd level you get better spells. But still, it's probably the equipment or something. But the ride from level 2 to level 3 has been much smoother. But then again, when I got out of Sorpigal, the first town, then again I got my backside handed to me in every single fight, basically, that I encountered on the way to the second town. And yeah, I'm yet to actually tackle that because I haven't been playing after that. And I did find on the first video, I think I did find a kind of secret guy, a leprechaun in the first city that offered that he can transport me to any other town for a price. It was gems. I can't remember if it was only 1 gem or 1 gem per character. But I did decide not to use that service because I did really want to see the overworld, or the world map, which, as you will see, is just the same kind of maze, kind of 3D-ish thing with mountains and forests and whatnot. But I did want to make my way over land to the second city, find it, just to see how it is. And as you will later see, I will basically just have to run from every single overland encounter at this point that I find. I did try to fight a couple of them, which I can't remember if they're in this video or not, but they did not go well. One of them actually is, yeah. But yeah, what else is there to say about this game at this point? Not much. Not much story as of yet. I've got those weird hints and clues. Here's the hippogriffs. These guys really took some effort to get down, actually. They hit like a truck at this point, and I really had to concentrate my firepower on getting them down. The thieves didn't really do anything. I don't know if they can steal stuff from you or not, probably not, but those hippogriffs were nasty, I can tell you that. At this point, I don't think that there was any monster that hit as hard. 17 points, yeah, that's almost the whole hit point allocation of my fighters, Glendon and Sir Simon. Or Sir Simon is a knight, like the proper fighter. Glendon is a paladin, and yeah, but the stats allocation is like all of these games at this point, except for Ultima actually, and maybe Wizardry, I don't know, but they're rolled randomly. You can press enter to roll again, so you're just hitting enter for as much time as you have patience for, and hoping for the best. I did do some of that, but it was so tedious to try to get every good stat, so I kind of shot for endurance because of the hit points, and I didn't really take much notice of the primary stats of the whatever class that was. Every class has a primary stat like in D&D. But the stats are very basic. Might does damage, accuracies to hit. Some of them, one of them is the clerical spell points, and one of them is the wizardly or sorcerer spell points. Then there's luck, which probably is unlocking the doors or disarming traps, and endurance for constitution. So very, very basic. And like I said, they don't go up with levels, as they don't in D&D, for example, and or D&D of this era. They do in later D&D editions, but I've been told that later in the game there's going to be some ways to get your stats up permanently, but as of now I'm limited to spells. The second level cleric has second level clerical spells. In there, there's spells which raise your might and your speed temporarily, like I mentioned before, and then you can buy some potions from the shop, which I think do the same. At least there's a might potion, but still I'm not really sure if those are usable. The potions were quite expensive, and especially if they only last for one combat or something, I don't see myself using them ever for any reason. Unless there will be some mandatory really tough fights at some point, but I don't know. I get the feeling that there's no things such as bosses or something in this game. It wasn't common in this era anyway. There were some games with like singular, like unique monsters, but not too many, and unless it was like the last bad guy, the main bad guy, that might be unique, but apart from that, I'm not expecting to meet any like unique bosses or NPCs that I have to fight on the way to the whatever it might be, if there's a last boss. I have no idea because the game doesn't tell you anything about what I'm supposed to be doing except for trying to find the secrets of the inner sanctum. And I have a distinct feeling that I'll be trying to find that secret for a while, I can tell you that. That vellum scroll you saw right there in the inventory of Glendawn, that's the quest item that the wizard in the dungeon gave me, and I'm supposed to be bringing it to another wizard in the town of... let me see, obviously I wrote that up because at that time I didn't know anything else about the town of Early Quinn, which I suppose is meant to be the next town that you're going to be visiting, because, well, you get a quest for that in the first town or the first dungeon. But I didn't find any other quests in this first city or the dungeon. And now we're outside. Look at the glorious Apple II graphics on the MS-DOS. Yeah, the port of this game is not brilliant, I can tell you that. It's, well, yeah. It's supposed to be MS-DOS, but I think that's identical to the Apple II. I haven't even seen the Apple II version, but I know enough of the Apple II graphics that... No, yeah, that's how you cross the... I did that completely by accident, but... That seems like, because these areas are also divided to like tiles or 16 by 16 grid tiles. Oh yeah, this is my first overland encounter, and boy did I get... yeah, I got completely trashed. Or I might have tried to... well, yeah, I see how much damage these guys do, and I immediately tried to run away after I didn't manage to do anything to them. I think I hit that one hard before like over 25 or 30 damage, and I didn't even get him down. So yeah. Yeah, no luck there, and if these are going to be the encounters that I'm supposed to be fighting in the overworld, then I guess it's back to the dungeons for me then. I don't know. Let's see how that works out. I will be getting to the second city at the end of this video, and I'm still there, so I'll be trying to maybe... the cities have encounters as well, so maybe that has some easier ones. I don't know. Oh, I did get one down, did I? I didn't remember that. Maybe it's some other combat. But yeah, concerning the spells, that's very commonplace as well in games from this age. There's no like spell UI or spell anything actually in the game in the game UI or the game system itself. Just asks you level and spell number. It doesn't even say what the spell does unless the spell does some damage to the monster or something. If you cast like a healing spell or protective spell or something, it just says done. So you're definitely going to be needing the manual for this, you know. It's kind of, I don't know if it was meant to be copy protection in this and in Bard's Tale and such games, and actually in Ultima 4 as well. And yeah, I don't know if it was meant to be copy protection or if it was just for like it was easier to code that way, or there wasn't enough memory to do it any other way, or what it was, I don't know. But it's kind of annoying. It takes quite a lot away from the feeling of being a wizard casting spells. Like, cast spell, 1, 5, done. Yay, I feel so powerful. I didn't even see what I was doing, even on text. Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer, so that does add to the tedium of the whole thing. Yeah, right there, now I ran away from some minor demons, I suppose. Running away works a bit strangely in this game. It kind of dumps you to a... I don't know if the square is random, but a square quite far away on the same 16 by 16 map. And then you need to run back. And then there's these options like bribe and surrender. I never tried them because bribe... I tried bribe once and it asked me for all of my money and all of my gems, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that. I'd rather just die and take my saved heroes. And the manual says that surrender does exactly the same thing, but it doesn't ask. And the manual also says that they don't work much of the time. So retreat doesn't work much of the time. I noticed that as well. So I suppose that I don't know if those are real options or not. These are some other locations I haven't visited. Earlyquin, yeah, that's the city. Second city. And yeah, I don't know if those bribes or surrenders are gonna be a thing later on in the game. At this point, I just feel that if I get into a fight, I cannot win and I cannot retreat from giving up all of my money, or all of my money and gems or food or whatnot will be much worse than just loading my saved heroes wherever they might be, because you need to be saving often in this game anyway. If you're not doing that, you're not going to go very far in any case, regardless of if you fight the monsters or if you try to bribe them or whatnot. And you won't have any money to bribe them anyway if you're not saving. But yeah, that's the first commentary on this channel for you viewers and listeners out there. I hope you liked it. It's first time for me doing this kind of thing. I think I'm gonna be doing this more in the future on coming videos as well. I need to do a bit of a setup to do this. This was kind of an impromptu thing right now, but I need to switch some things around and do some things that so I can edit things easier and whatnot. But yeah, I hope you liked it, and see you on the next one, and have a great day or night or morning or whatever time of day you are watching this. See you, bye bye.